It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Niccolo Machiavelli. The world tells you emotions are strength. It demands you feel, express, and connect. This is a comfortable lie designed to keep you predictable. True advantage lies in the ability to detach, to analyze, and to act with cold precision. Emotions are vulnerabilities, levers that others can exploit. Every outburst, every passionate plea, every display of fear is data transmitted directly to your opponent. They learn your breaking points, your desires, and the paths they can manipulate you down. Coldness is not the absence of feeling, it's the mastery of it. It is the ability to observe your emotions as data points, not as directives. The emotionally driven react. The coldly strategic calculate. One is a pawn, the other a player. Sentimentality is a weakness, a trap laid with comforting words and shared experiences. It clouds judgment, making you prioritize feelings over facts. Think of every bad decision you've made, every compromised position you've accepted, and trace it back to the emotional impulse that drove it. Pity, love, anger, all distractions from the objective. The long game requires sacrifice. Sometimes that sacrifice is the comfort of belonging, the warmth of approval, the illusion of security. Coldness allows you to make those sacrifices without hesitation, without regret. It is the ability to see the bigger picture, the systemic advantage that outweighs immediate gratification. The myth of emotional intelligence is perpetuated by those who benefit from your vulnerability. They preach empathy as a virtue, while simultaneously exploiting your emotional reactions to their advantage. They weaponize guilt, shame, and fear to control your behavior. True intelligence lies in recognizing this manipulation and refusing to participate. It's about building a fortress of logic around your decisions, impenetrable to the emotional assaults of others. This doesn't mean becoming a sociopath, devoid of all human connection. It means understanding the power dynamics at play and refusing to be a victim of your own feelings. Consider the masters of strategy throughout history. Were they driven by passionate outbursts or cold, calculating analysis? Did they prioritize their own feelings or the systemic advantage of their position? The answer is clear. Victory belongs to those who can detach, observe, and act with unwavering precision. Coldness is not a character flaw, it's a strategic asset. It's the ability to see the board clearly, to anticipate your opponent's moves, and to execute your plan without hesitation. Embrace it. Cultivate it. And watch as the world, driven by its emotional impulses, falls prey to your calculated advantage. The power to remain unmoved is the power to move the world. Furthermore, understand the difference between genuine empathy and manipulative appeals to your emotions. The world will attempt to blur the line, disguising self-serving agendas as genuine concern. Learn to discern the subtle cues, the calculated phrases designed to trigger specific emotional responses. Develop a mental firewall, a cognitive filter that analyzes every interaction for potential manipulation. This isn't about becoming paranoid, it's about becoming aware. It's about recognizing that every interaction is a negotiation, and that your emotional state is a valuable commodity that others will attempt to acquire. The pursuit of coldness is not about suppressing emotions entirely, but about mastering their influence. Imagine a general on a battlefield, overwhelmed by the fear and grief of his soldiers. Would he be able to make sound strategic decisions? Or would his emotions cloud his judgment, leading to defeat? The wise general acknowledges his emotions but refuses to be controlled by them. He understands the stakes, the systemic advantage he needs to achieve, and acts accordingly. This is the essence of strategic coldness. It's about using logic and analysis to override emotional impulses, even in the most challenging circumstances. The modern world bombards you with emotional stimuli, designed to keep you distracted and compliant. News cycles are engineered to provoke outrage and fear. Advertising preys on your insecurities and desires. Social media reinforces echo chambers of emotional validation. To cultivate coldness, you must actively resist this onslaught. Curate your information sources carefully. prioritizing objective analysis over sensationalism. Practice mindfulness and self-awareness, learning to identify your emotional triggers and develop strategies for managing them. Seek out environments that value logic and reason, where emotions are acknowledged but not allowed to dictate decisions. Finally, remember that coldness is not an end in itself, but a means to an end. It's a tool that can be used for good or ill. The coldly strategic individual is not inherently virtuous, but simply more effective. It's up to you to decide how you will use your newfound power. Will you use it to manipulate and exploit others or to build a better world? The choice is yours, but choose wisely, for the consequences of your actions will ripple through the system, shaping the world around you. And the cold, hard truth is that the world rewards those who act with calculated precision, regardless of their motives. Emotional reasoning is a common trap where feelings dictate beliefs. You feel anxious, therefore you believe you are in danger. You feel happy, therefore you believe everything is fine. This is a distorted lens through which to view reality. Strategic coldness demands that you acknowledge your emotions without allowing them to control your perception. Understand that feelings are data points, not directives. They can provide valuable insights into your internal state, but they should not be the sole basis for your decisions. Instead, subject your emotions to rigorous scrutiny, asking yourself why you feel a certain way and whether your feelings are justified by the objective facts. Challenge your assumptions and biases, seeking out alternative perspectives that may contradict your emotional impulses. This process of emotional regulation is not about suppressing or denying your feelings, but about understanding and managing them effectively. It's about taking control of your emotional landscape, rather than being controlled by it. This separation of feeling from fact is crucial for making sound judgments in high-pressure situations, where emotions can easily cloud your judgment. One of the key techniques for cultivating coldness is the practice of detachment. This does not mean becoming emotionless or apathetic, but rather developing the ability to observe situations from a distance without becoming emotionally invested in the outcome. Imagine yourself as a chess player, analyzing the board from above. You see the pieces as strategic assets, not as extensions of your ego. You evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of each position, calculating the potential consequences of each move. You remain calm and focused, even when facing adversity, knowing that emotional outbursts will only cloud your judgment and lead to mistakes. This same principle applies to all areas of life. When faced with a difficult decision, step back and detach yourself from the immediate emotional pressures. Consider the long-term implications of your actions, weighing the potential risks and rewards with a clear and objective mind. Resist the temptation to react impulsively, driven by anger, fear, or desire. Instead, cultivate a sense of inner calm and stability, allowing yourself to think clearly and make rational choices, regardless of the emotional turmoil around you. This detachment allows you to see the bigger picture, to identify the underlying patterns and trends that others may miss. It allows you to anticipate future events and prepare accordingly, giving you a significant strategic advantage. Another crucial aspect of coldness is the ability to delay gratification. In a world of instant gratification, where everything is designed to provide immediate pleasure and satisfaction, the ability to resist temptation is a rare and valuable skill. Strategic coldness demands that you prioritize long-term goals over short-term desires. This means making sacrifices in the present to achieve greater rewards in the future. It means resisting the urge to indulge in immediate pleasures, knowing that these pleasures may come at the expense of your long-term success. Think of the athlete who trains relentlessly, pushing their body to the limits, even when they are exhausted and in pain. They do this because they understand that the short-term discomfort is a necessary investment in their long-term goals. They are willing to delay gratification, to endure the pain and sacrifice, knowing that it will ultimately lead to victory. This same principle applies to all areas of life. Whether it's saving money for a future investment, studying for a difficult exam, or working on a long-term project, the ability to delay gratification is essential for achieving success. It requires discipline, willpower, and a clear understanding of your long-term goals. It requires the ability to resist the seductive allure of instant gratification and to focus on the bigger picture. Furthermore, a cold strategist accepts uncertainty. The world is a complex and unpredictable place, and no amount of planning can eliminate all risks. Trying to control every variable is a fool's errand. Instead, cultivate the ability to adapt to changing circumstances, to improvise and innovate when faced with unexpected challenges. This requires a certain degree of flexibility and open-mindedness, a willingness to abandon your plans when necessary, and to embrace new opportunities as they arise. The cold strategist does not cling rigidly to their initial assumptions, but rather constantly reevaluates their situation based on new information. They are willing to admit when they are wrong and to change their course of action accordingly. This adaptability is crucial for surviving and thriving in a dynamic environment. It allows you to react quickly to new threats and opportunities, to seize the initiative and maintain control of the situation. Embrace the chaos, learn to navigate uncertainty, and use it to your advantage. Finally, remember that true coldness is not about being cruel or heartless. It's about being rational and objective. It's about making decisions based on logic and analysis, rather than emotion and impulse. It's about seeing the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. This requires a certain degree of self-awareness and emotional intelligence. You must understand your own biases and limitations and strive to overcome them. You must also be able to empathize with others, to understand their motivations and perspectives, even when you disagree with them. This empathy is not a weakness, but a strength. It allows you to anticipate the actions of others and to influence them effectively. A truly cold strategist is not devoid of emotion, but rather masters them, using them as a tool to achieve their goals. They are able to connect with others on a human level, while still maintaining their objectivity and detachment. This combination of coldness and empathy is a powerful force, capable of achieving great things. It is the key to success in any field, from business and politics to sports and war. Learn to cultivate this balance, and you will unlock your full potential. The advantage lies not in suppressing emotion, but in mastering it. Consider the world of high-stakes poker. It's a crucible where fortunes are won and lost in a single hand, a microcosm of strategic interaction under immense pressure. Look beyond the bluffing and the betting, and you'll find a profound illustration of the power of calculated coldness. Imagine two players locked in a tense battle. One, fueled by adrenaline and impulsive reads, bets aggressively, trying to intimidate his opponent. He allows his emotions to dictate his actions, his face betraying subtle tells. The other player, however, remains impassive, his gaze steady and unwavering. He has meticulously analyzed the board, the betting patterns, and his opponent's tendencies. He has assigned probabilities to every possible hand, calculated the expected value of each action, and developed a strategic plan. This player is the embodiment of coldness. He is not swayed by the emotions of the moment, not intimidated by aggressive bluffs. He sees the game as a series of strategic decisions, each with its own optimal outcome. His strength is the ability to detach himself from the emotional roller coaster of the game. He doesn't feel the euphoria of winning a big pot or the sting of losing a tough hand. Instead, he remains focused on the long game, making decisions based on logic and analysis. He understands that poker is a game of probabilities, and that even the best players will lose hands from time to time. The key is to minimize those losses and maximize the winnings by making rational decisions in every situation. His detachment allows him to see through the bluffs and deception, to identify the weaknesses in his opponent's game, and to exploit them to his advantage. He is like a machine, calculating the optimal move with ruthless efficiency. Contrast this with the player who is ruled by his emotions. He may win a few hands based on luck or intuition, but his long-term success is limited. He is too easily swayed by the emotions of the moment, too prone to making impulsive decisions that he later regrets. When he wins, he becomes overconfident and takes unnecessary risks. When he loses, he becomes frustrated and starts chasing his losses, digging himself into a deeper hole. His emotions become his downfall, clouding his judgment and preventing him from seeing the game clearly. He is like a ship without a rudder, tossed about by the waves of emotion, destined to crash against the rocks. The cold player, on the other hand, is like a surgeon, calmly and methodically dissecting the situation. He understands that poker is not about luck, but about skill, strategy, and discipline. He is willing to fold a good hand if he believes that his opponent has a better one. He is willing to wait patiently for the right opportunity, even if it means playing passively for a long period of time. He understands that the game is a marathon, not a sprint, and that the key to success is to conserve his resources and to strike when the moment is right. This coldness extends beyond the technical aspects of the game. It also involves a deep understanding of human psychology. The cold player is able to read his opponents, to identify their tells, and to exploit their weaknesses. He understands that everyone has a breaking point, and he knows how to push his opponents to that point. He is a master of manipulation, able to control the flow of the game and to dictate the terms of the battle. He can use silence, body language, and subtle changes in his betting patterns to influence his opponent's decisions. He is like a puppeteer, pulling the strings and watching his opponents dance to his tune. But this coldness is not about being cruel or malicious. It's about being objective and detached. It's about seeing the game as it is, not as you wish it to be. It requires a certain degree of emotional intelligence, the ability to understand and manage your own emotions, as well as the emotions of others. The cold player is not devoid of emotion, but rather masters them, using them as a tool to achieve his goals. He is able to connect with others on a human level, while still maintaining his objectivity and detachment. He is not trying to hurt his opponents, but he is also not afraid to take advantage of their weaknesses. He sees the game as a competition, a test of skill and strategy, and he is determined to win. This combination of coldness and empathy is a powerful force, capable of achieving great things. It is the key to success in any field, from business and politics to sports and war. The advantage lies in the ability to maintain a clear and rational mind, even in the face of intense pressure and uncertainty. It is about seeing the world as it is, not as you wish it to be, and making decisions based on logic and analysis, rather than emotion and impulse. This is the essence of coldness, and it is the key to achieving a strategic advantage. The trap is sprung when emotion clouds judgment. A player ensnared by anger, fear, or even excessive joy becomes predictable. Their moves telegraph their feelings, their bets betray their anxieties, and their boasts reveal their insecurities. This emotional transparency is a fatal flaw in the arena of strategic conflict. It transforms the individual from a thinking agent into a reactive machine, vulnerable to manipulation and exploitation. The cold player, in contrast, remains an enigma, a blank slate onto which their opponents project their own hopes and fears. This allows the cold player to control the narrative, shaping the perception of the game to their advantage. The weak player, driven by emotion, plays the game they feel is being presented to them. The strong player dictates the terms of engagement, manipulating the emotions of others while remaining detached and calculating. Consider the chess player who slams the table after a blunder, or the poker player who sighs audibly after a bad beat. These displays of emotion are not merely expressions of frustration, they are strategic errors. They reveal vulnerability, signaling to opponents that they are rattled and prone to mistakes. A cold player would internalize their frustration, analyzing their error and adjusting their strategy accordingly. They would not give their opponents the satisfaction of seeing them upset, nor would they provide them with valuable information about their emotional state. This stoicism is not about suppressing emotions entirely, but about controlling their outward expression and preventing them from influencing decision-making. It's about maintaining a poker face, regardless of the hand you're dealt. The allure of immediate gratification is another trap that ensnares the weak. They seek instant validation, quick wins, and easy solutions. They are impatient and impulsive, prone to taking unnecessary risks in pursuit of fleeting rewards. The cold player, in contrast, is patient and disciplined, willing to sacrifice short-term gains for long-term advantage. They understand that true success requires careful planning, meticulous execution, and a willingness to delay gratification. They are not swayed by the siren song of instant riches, but remain focused on their ultimate goal, even if it requires years of dedicated effort. This long-term perspective allows them to see opportunities that others miss, and to avoid the pitfalls that trap the impatient and the impulsive. They are willing to play the long game, knowing that patience and perseverance are the keys to ultimate victory. The inability to adapt is a further vulnerability. The weak cling to their preconceived notions and outdated strategies, even when faced with overwhelming evidence that they are no longer effective. They are resistant to change, stubborn in their beliefs, and unwilling to learn from their mistakes. The cold player, in contrast, is adaptable and flexible, constantly reassessing their strategies and adjusting their approach based on the changing circumstances. They are not afraid to abandon their old ideas, even if they are deeply cherished, if they are no longer serving them well. They are lifelong learners, constantly seeking new knowledge and new perspectives. This adaptability allows them to stay ahead of the curve, anticipate changes in the environment, and exploit the weaknesses of their less adaptable opponents. They understand that the only constant is change, and that the ability to adapt is essential for survival and success. Furthermore, the trap of succumbing to social pressure is a common downfall. The weak are often more concerned with fitting in and being liked than with achieving their goals. They are easily influenced by the opinions of others, and they are afraid to go against the crowd. The cold player, in contrast, is independent and self-reliant, willing to stand alone if necessary. They are not swayed by social pressure, and they are not afraid to challenge the status quo. They are guided by their own internal compass, and they make decisions based on logic and analysis, rather than on the opinions of others. This independence allows them to see things from a different perspective, to identify opportunities that others miss, and to make decisions that are in their own best interest, even if they are unpopular. They understand that true success often requires going against the grain, and they are willing to do so, even if it means facing criticism and opposition. Finally, the trap of neglecting the fundamentals is a subtle but pervasive weakness. The weak often become fixated on complex strategies and elaborate schemes, while neglecting the basic principles that underpin all successful endeavors. They are like architects who focus on the aesthetics of a building while neglecting its foundation. The cold player, in contrast, is meticulous in their attention to detail, ensuring that all the fundamentals are in place before moving on to more advanced strategies. They understand that true mastery requires a deep understanding of the basics, and they are willing to put in the hard work necessary to master them. This foundation of fundamental skills allows them to execute complex strategies with precision and efficiency, and to adapt to changing circumstances with ease. They are like master craftsmen who have honed their skills through years of practice, and who can apply their knowledge and experience to any challenge. The ability to detach from emotions, to view situations with a clear and unbiased perspective, provides a significant strategic advantage. Emotions cloud judgment, leading to impulsive decisions and predictable reactions. When fear, anger, or even excessive enthusiasm dictate actions, vulnerability increases exponentially. A cold player, however, assesses the landscape with calculated precision, identifying weaknesses and exploiting opportunities that emotional players overlook. This detachment doesn't imply a lack of empathy, but rather a conscious decision to prioritize strategic objectives over emotional impulses. It's about recognizing the game for what it is, a complex interplay of forces, and playing it with the rationality required to achieve victory. The chess grandmaster doesn't allow frustration from a lost piece to derail their overall strategy. They adapt, recalculate, and continue the game with unwavering focus. Furthermore, the cold player understands the power of information asymmetry. Emotions are easily read, telegraphed through body language, tone of voice, and decision-making patterns. A player governed by emotion is an open book, their intentions easily deciphered by a keen observer. The cold player, on the other hand, maintains a controlled demeanor, revealing only what they choose to reveal. This ambiguity creates uncertainty in their opponents, forcing them to second-guess their assumptions and hesitate in their actions. They become masters of deception, using calculated misdirection to manipulate their opponents into making mistakes. They understand that information is a weapon, and they wield it with precision and control. Moreover, the cultivation of coldness fosters resilience in the face of adversity. Setbacks are inevitable in any strategic endeavor, but emotional players often allow these setbacks to demoralize them, leading to further mistakes and ultimately defeat. The cold player, however, views setbacks as learning opportunities, analyzing their mistakes, adjusting their strategies, and moving forward with renewed determination. They understand that failure is not the opposite of success, but a stepping stone towards it. Their ability to detach emotionally from the outcome allows them to persevere through difficult circumstances, to maintain their focus on the long-term goal, and to ultimately emerge victorious. They are like seasoned commanders who have weathered countless battles, learning from each defeat and emerging stronger and more resilient. A critical element of coldness is the capacity to make difficult decisions, even when those decisions involve causing pain or hardship to others. Emotional players often shy away from these decisions, prioritizing short-term comfort over long-term strategic advantage. The cold player, however, understands that sometimes sacrifices are necessary to achieve a greater good. They are willing to make the tough choices, even if they are unpopular or morally ambiguous, because they understand that the ultimate goal is to win. This doesn't imply a lack of morality, but rather a willingness to accept the harsh realities of the game. They are like surgeons who must make difficult choices in order to save a patient's life, understanding that sometimes pain is necessary for healing. Coldness also allows for objectivity in evaluating oneself and one's strategies. Emotional players often become attached to their ideas and plans, defending them even in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. The cold player, however, is willing to abandon their own ideas if they are proven to be ineffective. They are constantly evaluating their strategies, seeking feedback, and making adjustments as needed. They understand that the only way to improve is to be honest with themselves about their weaknesses and to be willing to learn from their mistakes. This self-awareness allows them to adapt to changing circumstances, to refine their strategies, and to ultimately achieve their goals. They are like scientists who are constantly testing their hypotheses, willing to abandon their theories if they are disproven by the evidence. The ability to remain calm under pressure is another key advantage conferred by coldness. High-stakes situations often trigger panic and anxiety in emotional players, leading to poor decision-making and costly mistakes. The cold player, however, remains composed and focused, even in the most stressful circumstances. They are able to think clearly and rationally, to assess the situation objectively, and to make decisions that are in their best interest. This composure allows them to maintain control, to avoid impulsive reactions, and to exploit the weaknesses of their opponents. They are like fighter pilots who remain calm and focused in the midst of aerial combat, making split-second decisions that can mean the difference between life and death. Finally, the discipline required to cultivate coldness extends beyond strategic decision-making and permeates every aspect of the player's life. It's not simply a tactical approach to specific situations, but a fundamental shift in mindset. It involves developing the ability to control one's emotions, to prioritize logic over impulse, and to maintain a clear and focused perspective, regardless of the circumstances. This discipline allows the player to make consistent progress towards their goals, to avoid distractions and temptations, and to ultimately achieve a level of mastery that is unattainable for those who are governed by their emotions. They understand that true power comes not from brute force or emotional manipulation, but from the ability to control oneself and to master one's own mind. This is the ultimate advantage of coldness. It allows the player to become the master of their own destiny. History offers countless examples of how emotional control, or the lack thereof, has determined the fate of empires and the outcome of wars. Consider the Roman Empire, a civilization that rose to prominence through a combination of military prowess, strategic planning, and a pragmatic approach to governance. While individual emperors might have been prone to fits of rage or bouts of irrationality, the empire's institutional strength lay in its ability to maintain a degree of coldness in its decision-making processes. The Senate, the legions, and the vast bureaucracy all served as buffers against impulsive actions, ensuring that policy was based on reasoned analysis rather than emotional whim. When emperors like Nero or Caligula allowed their emotions to dictate their policies, the empire suffered, facing internal unrest and external threats. Conversely, when leaders like Augustus or Trajan prioritized the long-term interests of the empire over their personal feelings, Rome prospered and expanded. The empire's ability to project power, to manage its vast territories, and to adapt to changing circumstances depended on its capacity for calculated action, a characteristic that was directly linked to its ability to suppress emotional impulses. The construction of roads, the establishment of trade networks, the development of legal codes, all these achievements were the product of rational planning and dispassionate execution. The Roman Empire, at its height, was a machine of calculated efficiency, a testament to the power of coldness in achieving strategic objectives. Contrast this with empires that were built on charisma and emotional appeals, rather than on strategic foresight and disciplined execution. Many such empires, driven by the fervor of religious zeal or the cult of personality, achieved initial successes through the sheer force of emotional conviction. However, these empires often proved to be fragile and short-lived, collapsing under the weight of their own internal contradictions and the inability to adapt to changing circumstances. When faced with setbacks or unexpected challenges, their leaders were prone to panic and overreaction, leading to poor decisions and ultimately to their downfall. The Mongol Empire, while initially built on ruthless efficiency and military discipline, eventually fractured due to internal power struggles and the inability of its leaders to maintain a cohesive vision. The emotional bonds that had held the empire together began to fray, replaced by rivalries and infighting. The empire's vast territories were divided among competing factions, each driven by their own ambitions and desires. The initial cold calculation that had fueled the Mongol conquests gave way to emotional impulses, ultimately leading to the empire's disintegration. Military history is replete with examples of how coldness has been a decisive factor in determining the outcome of battles and wars. The Prussian military reforms of the 18th century, spearheaded by figures like Frederick the Great, emphasized discipline, precision, and strategic planning over individual heroism or emotional displays. Prussian soldiers were trained to execute orders with unwavering obedience, to maintain their composure under fire, and to act as a cohesive unit. This emphasis on cold, calculated efficiency allowed the Prussian army to punch above its weight, achieving victories against larger and more powerful adversaries. The Prussian military machine was a model of rational organization, designed to minimize the impact of emotional factors on battlefield performance. The focus was on training, logistics, and strategic deployment, rather than on inspiring emotional fervor or encouraging individual acts of bravery. The Prussian officer corps was trained to think strategically, to analyze the terrain, and to assess the enemy's strengths and weaknesses. This emphasis on intellectual rigor and dispassionate analysis allowed them to make informed decisions, even under the most stressful circumstances. Conversely, armies that have relied on emotional appeals or undisciplined aggression have often suffered devastating defeats. The charge of the Light Brigade during the Crimean War is a classic example of how emotional impulses can lead to catastrophic consequences. Driven by a misinterpretation of orders and a desire to prove their courage, the Light Brigade charged headlong into a heavily defended Russian artillery battery, suffering horrendous casualties. The charge was a testament to the bravery of the British soldiers, but it was also a stark reminder of the dangers of emotional decision-making on the battlefield. The Light Brigade's emotional fervor blinded them to the strategic realities of the situation, leading to a senseless and ultimately futile act of aggression. The charge was a tragic example of how a lack of cold, calculated analysis can lead to disaster. The British commanders, caught up in the heat of the moment, failed to assess the situation objectively, resulting in a disastrous outcome for their troops. The Crimean War, in general, exposed the limitations of relying on emotional displays and individual heroism, highlighting the importance of strategic planning and disciplined execution in modern warfare. The psychological advantage of coldness extends far beyond the battlefield, permeating every aspect of human endeavor where strategic thinking is paramount. In the realm of business, for example, emotionally driven decisions often lead to impulsive investments, ill-conceived marketing campaigns, and ultimately, financial ruin. Companies that prioritize short-term gains over long-term sustainability, driven by the fear of missing out or the desire to appease shareholders, are more likely to make reckless choices that jeopardize their future. A cold, calculated approach, on the other hand, allows businesses to identify opportunities, assess risks, and allocate resources in a rational and efficient manner. By distancing themselves from emotional attachments to specific projects or products, business leaders can make objective decisions that are in the best interests of the company as a whole. This detachment enables them to adapt to changing market conditions, abandon failing ventures, and pursue new opportunities with a clear and unwavering focus. The ability to remain calm and collected under pressure is also crucial for effective leadership. Leaders who are prone to emotional outbursts or irrational behavior can create a climate of fear and uncertainty, undermining morale and stifling creativity. In contrast, leaders who maintain a cool and composed demeanor, even in the face of adversity, inspire confidence and instill a sense of stability. Their ability to think clearly and make sound judgments under pressure allows them to guide their teams through challenging situations and emerge stronger on the other side. Furthermore, the psychological advantage of coldness is essential for effective negotiation. Emotional negotiators are easily manipulated, prone to making concessions they later regret, and often fail to achieve their desired outcomes. A cold, calculated negotiator, however, approaches the situation with a clear understanding of their goals, a thorough assessment of the other party's position, and a willingness to walk away if necessary. By remaining detached from the emotional aspects of the negotiation, they can focus on the facts, identify opportunities for compromise, and ultimately secure the best possible deal. This approach requires a high degree of self-control, the ability to remain objective, and a willingness to challenge assumptions. The cold negotiator understands that emotions can be used as a weapon, and they are careful not to let their own feelings cloud their judgment. The same principle applies to the world of investing. Emotional investors are often swayed by market hype, driven by fear and greed, and prone to making impulsive decisions that lead to significant losses. A cold, calculated investor, however, approaches the market with a rational and analytical mindset, focusing on long-term value, diversification, and risk management. By remaining detached from the emotional fluctuations of the market, They can make informed decisions that are based on sound financial principles. This requires a deep understanding of market dynamics, a willingness to do thorough research, and the discipline to resist the temptation to chase short-term gains. The cold investor understands that patience and discipline are essential for long-term success. Even in personal relationships, a degree of coldness can be beneficial. While empathy and compassion are undoubtedly important, excessive emotional involvement can lead to codependency, manipulation, and ultimately, resentment. The ability to maintain a degree of emotional detachment allows individuals to set healthy boundaries, protect their own interests, and avoid being taken advantage of. This does not mean being callous or indifferent, but rather, being able to step back and assess the situation objectively, without being overwhelmed by emotions. It means being able to offer support and guidance without becoming enmeshed in the other person's problems. Ultimately, the psychological advantage of coldness lies in its ability to enhance clarity, objectivity, and strategic thinking. By distancing ourselves from the emotional turmoil that can cloud our judgment, we can make better decisions, negotiate more effectively, and achieve our goals with greater efficiency. This does not mean suppressing our emotions entirely, but rather, learning to manage them in a way that allows us to think clearly and act rationally. It is about cultivating a mental discipline that enables us to remain calm, focused, and in control, even in the most challenging circumstances. It's about recognizing that while emotions are a natural part of the human experience, they should not be allowed to dictate our actions or determine our fate. Instead, we must strive to cultivate a cold, calculated approach that allows us to navigate the complexities of life with wisdom, foresight, and unwavering resolve. This coldness is not an absence of feeling, but a mastery of it. The mastery of feeling translates to the mastery of leverage. Emotional volatility is a tell, a weakness broadcast for predators to exploit. A cold demeanor conceals your intentions, obscuring your vulnerabilities from those who would seek to use them against you. This is not about repression, but about controlled release. A dam that never spills will eventually burst. Instead, cultivate a disciplined emotional reservoir, capable of absorbing immense pressure without fracturing. Channel your emotional energy strategically like a directed weapon, unleashed only when it serves a calculated purpose. Learn to simulate warmth when necessary, projecting an image of empathy and understanding to disarm your opponents. This is camouflage, a tactical deception to lull them into a false sense of security, but never mistake the mask for the reality. Beneath the surface, maintain a core of unwavering resolve, impervious to sentimentality or guilt. Recognize that every interaction is a transaction, a subtle exchange of power and influence. Your emotions are currency, to be spent wisely and sparingly. Avoid impulsive displays of anger or affection, as these can reveal your underlying motivations and expose your weaknesses. Instead, cultivate a calm, analytical approach, assessing each situation with detached objectivity. View people as chess pieces, each with their own strengths and limitations, their own predictable patterns of behavior. Anticipate their moves, exploit their vulnerabilities, and maneuver them into positions where they can no longer threaten your objectives. The ultimate advantage lies in your ability to see the game from a higher perspective, to recognize the underlying patterns and systemic forces that shape the actions of others. This requires a degree of detachment, a willingness to step back from the emotional fray and observe the situation with cold, clinical precision. It means understanding that sentimentality has no place in strategic decision-making. That empathy can be a liability, clouding your judgment and preventing you from making the tough choices necessary to achieve your goals. It is about cultivating a mindset of relentless pragmatism, where every action is driven by a cold, calculated assessment of risk and reward. This is not about being heartless or cruel, but about being ruthlessly efficient. About maximizing your resources and minimizing your exposure. About playing the long game, patiently building your advantage over time until you have achieved an insurmountable position. Remember, the world is a battlefield, and every encounter is a test of strength and will. Those who allow their emotions to control them will inevitably be defeated. But those who can master their feelings, who can cultivate a cold, calculating approach to every situation,